I bought a DVD called The Hurt Business. You've heard of The Hurt Business? Okay. And I encourage every young aspiring fighter to go and watch this DVD before you even think about stepping into a ring or a cage. Okay, this stuff isn't for everyone. You know, it all looks glamorous on TV. You see somebody's hand getting raised in victory, and it's all beautiful. You didn't see the weight cuts. You didn't see the limited amount of calories they had to have. You didn't see the sauna trips. You didn't see the 6 a.m. road runs. And I think out of every 100 people, if you ask them to do that, maybe one or two would succeed. The rest would quit after the first week. You wouldn't do what these people do.
And I think exactly that. I think seeing it and feeling it are two different things.
Yeah.
You know, I can speak from experience. As I said it was Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know, like I was like, yeah, touch gloves. Let's dance for a little bit. You know,
So Jimmy was your referee, right?
He was my referee,
Yeah,
and you know, they always talk about visualization. Rich is very big on that, like visualize.
Yeah.
And you know, as I said, I had 100 scenarios. It's going to go to the ground. It's going to be standing. I'm going to throw a few leg kicks. I'm going to do this, whatever. Like, but every moment was touch the gloves, step back again, and do a little dance, you know? Like, we're putting on a show for family and friends, you know? Like,
no.
You know what I mean? And you know, granted, Coach Mick said to my opponent, because he was actually going against me, he said, be first and be hard. And my coach has never said that. So I was still going in with the whole intention where his number one thing was I touch, and because we did agree to touch. So, and I'll grant that to him. Like, it wasn't dirty. It was just, I didn't expect it, right? So I never once will say he did dirt there, because sometimes you do see people...
Always expect it. It's a fight, right?
You know, but sometimes you do see people, they kind of put it up and they'll move it back last minute and throw a kick or whatever, and you kind of go, all right, well, yes, a fight's a fight, and usually the ref will say, if you want to touch gloves, touch them now before the fight begins. But, you know, some people do use that kind of thing, but and I'm not saying that with my opponent. It was just never what I had visualized. And so, and then to get hit with those 4-ounce gloves when we've been sparring with 16-ounce gloves and stuff. And once again, you're sparring at 60%, and all of a sudden he's throwing every you know, ounce of strength he has behind that shot. And because I wasn't ready to defend, because I wasn't expecting it, it was a clean shot. Like, it was square in the face, right? Like, and I was seeing stars. I was like,
shit hurts, doesn't it?
Mate, and and as I say, like, you're there, you're like, what have I got myself into? Like, it really is, you know. And as I say, leading up to that event, like, it really was like, I was like, yeah, this is going to be mad, you know. I'm going to have friends and family. Like, the lights are on, my music's going to play. Like, even backstage, I was cool as a cucumber. I remember backstage, I had my music on. You know, people would come up, I'd be dancing, like, because the same thing. I was like, I've sparred with this guy as well, like. But once again, it's a different, even from sparring, it's totally different, right? Because the intent isn't there, right? When you're sparring, you're sharpening your skills, you're doing all this, but there's no intention to hurt that person, right? But as soon as you step in, well, I didn't have intent to hurt him, but he obviously had an intent to hurt me, right? But
I couldn't do it.
It's tough, man. And I just remember I was like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. And then it got to a point where he hit me with a couple of illegal strikes. And Jimmy stopped the fight. Well, he gave us the break. He didn't stop it. And I remember I was like, mate, do I take it? Do I just take this as the illegal shot and I'm done, you know?
Yeah.
But then, you know, you hear everyone cheering and this and that.
So you were thinking about quitting?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I was, right? Because, I mean, until that point, I don't even think I landed a shot. I really don't. Like, and as I say, like, the sensation it gave me, like, was he hit me with that first shot.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the way I describe it was like a vacuum, right? So you've got the crowd, you've got everything, that shot lands. All of a sudden, it's like... I couldn't hear anymore, right? I didn't even realize we were in an arena anymore. I could still see my opponent, but it was, I guess what it was like a survival instinct.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, boom, like focus on him. I didn't even see Jimmy anymore. Like Jimmy wasn't in the cage with us. It was me and him. But I was like, what just hit me? What just hit me? What just hit me? And by the time my head was starting to clear up, he'd landed another shot and another shot. So it was a constant trying to catch up. Like my mind was trying to catch up. Like, where am I? What is going on? Douche. What just hit me? Boom. Another, and it just felt like I was I don't know, in a Dodgem Cars arena, and it was really confusing. And as I say, and then the shots, the illegal shots landed, and there was one moment of me just going, I've bitten off more than I can chew, right? And I've got Richie yelling at me going, take your time. And, it was at that moment that I wanted to quit, or I will say, and it was because I was like, well, once again, do I just want to take this damage? Like at the end of the day, I was like, is it worth taking this damage? And I honestly was telling myself no, like you haven't even landed a shot. I not even landed a shot. I don't even think I threw a shot. Like, let's put it that way. I think the whole time I was just trying to miss whatever was coming because, as I said, I was trying to clear my head. But then, whether you call it peer pressure or whatever, I don't know. You hear your friends and your family cheer and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I can't go out like this, right? And this is, I guess, this whole like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out on my shield, right? And that's why I kind of asked Jimmy as well why he didn't call that fight, because me personally, if I was in there, I might have called it, and it was just because I didn't feel I was doing all too well. I just didn't feel that, right? But he said, look, every time I asked you to do something, you did it, and I knew you were still in it, and I appreciate that fact. And that's why I say, like, being a ref is a very hard job in the sense of, I mean, when you're talking about the pros, you're talking about livelihoods, you're talking about money, right?
Yep.
But even in that case, like me, I'm the first person to say, if I was the ref of my fight, I probably would have called it. He was smart enough not to call it, and he's now given me one of the best memories of my life, right? Like, where I would have robbed myself of that feeling, that sensation, right? And I guess because I see a lot of these other amateur fights, and I said to him, they get called early, or earlier than pros, right? And I get it because they're not used to taking that damage. But as I said, the first 2.5 minutes, I wasn't even throwing a shot. I just wasn't throwing. I was covering up. I was maybe running a little. I don't know. I was doing whatever I needed to do to try to avoid getting hit again.
But it's a blur to you now, right?
No, I remember it quite well.
Remember the whole thing?
I remember it quite well. Even to the point then when I was able to lock off that submission, talking about the vacuum, it was so weird. Like, so obviously my whole plan was to tire him out. And, I'd spoken to Tiago, my coach, and I wanted to get him with the Anaconda. That was always the plan. So I had drilled that quite a bit. So once I had that locked in, I was like, all right, I got this, right? But it was weird because then when Jimmy obviously pulled me off, and I feel bad for him now too, because it was with 14 seconds to go in the round, and you kind of go, oh, maybe he could have held on for 14 seconds, before tapping. But I mean, it is what it is. Like, but I just remember at the time it was a blur because I was in that vacuum that I talk about, right? Where I couldn't hear anything. Like, and as I said, Jimmy wasn't even in the cage. Jimmy came back in the cage when he was pulling me off the guy, right? And the same way all that noise disappeared, it came back, but it came back like a tidal wave, right? Like, that's literally the sensation I got. It was like it went from this deafening, and then all of a sudden I could hear the cheers and stuff, just this is, and then the adrenaline kicks in, and I ran around the cage, making a fool of myself or whatever. But like, because looking back on it, like, maybe I shouldn't have been running around because it wasn't the best performance either, but the adrenaline kicks in and it is what it is. But as I say, like, it is a hard job because I'd be the first person to admit that, stop the fight, ref, what are you doing? But then now I appreciate the fact he didn't, and he made the right call.
It's a tough gig.
It
It
really
can be a tough gig at times.